Hello everybody and welcome to the Friday edition of Video Clips. Couple of announcements. First of all, Fall Conference 25th Anniversary Celebration. We're having it in Columbus, November 13 through 15. Second thing, therapy with Kylia Rohrbaugh, amazing therapist. We offer two programs, one for people, and this is all done by teleconference by the way, very inexpensive. We have a member and non-member rate, but one program is for people who are suffering from issues specifically related to COVID. And the other is for people who have anxiety and depression, may have some COVID implications, but it's been going on for a long time before that. And then, of course, if you're interested in careers, Pam Popper at MSN.com. Membership, lots of benefits with membership, videos and article libraries and live conference calls and all kinds of things. So check out WellnessForumHealth.com. And as I've said before, we're supporting our efforts by basically people buying things from us, not raising money and all that sort of thing. Somebody wrote to me, on Friday I usually talk about various things with consequences and that sort of thing. Somebody said, gosh, what do you do when you're in a relationship and the person you're married to or living with or whatever is on the other side of this issue? And that's a great question. I'm not in a relationship, so I'm no good at relationships actually, so I don't do that anymore. But I think that sometimes what happens when a crisis like this happens is it amplifies or brings to light something that was going on before. The people who I know who have been impacted by this, when I speak with them, they often tell me, well, things weren't great before, this just made it worse. In other words, what's happening is not that everything was hunky-dory and then COVID came along and all of a sudden this marriage or this relationship is falling apart. It was happening before, this just sped up the process. And so I guess I would point people back to make sure that you address the cause. It's not maybe COVID, it's maybe deeper than that. And I think all of us are suffering with losing friends and disconnecting from people who have bought this whole story. I'm sure that this happened in other situations in which a police state has been instituted in prior regimes. You can look all over the world. We're not the first people to have this happen. So my heart goes out to people who are dealing with this. I know it's incredibly distressing. It's not like it's not already stressful enough out there, right? We ought to have all of this going on too. So anyway, that's about all I can say. I'm not a therapist. I realize my limitations there, and I'm the worst person to ask for relationship advice because that's one of those things I'm not very good at all. All right, so let's talk about some things that are going on in the world of COVID land. All right, just had to share this with you as I find it pretty unbelievable. I've been a medical transcriptionist for 35 years. Today I did an EKG and stress test report by a cardiologist on a patient who is suspected to have a heart attack. This is what she said. Performance may have been limited due to the fact that the patient had to wear a mask because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Unbelievable. I don't even want to see a doctor anymore, as most of them seem to be drinking the Kool-Aid. So we have somebody getting a stress test, an EKG and stress test, and we're making them wear a mask, which the doctor acknowledges will probably affect the results, but we have to wear a mask because God knows, don't think for yourself. All right, I hope this was fake news, so I double-checked via telephone conversation with Delta customer service representative James. If you want to fly Delta and you have a medical condition that precludes the wearing of a medical device on your face, you will undergo a special screening, read separate, before being allowed to fly. So despite the Americans with Disability Act's prohibition about asking anyone to document their medical condition, Delta is just going to ask you to step aside for a separate but equal check-in process that includes a conversation with a vendor that Delta is partnering with to answer questions to prove one's medical condition. This is how Delta plans to skirt this. No documentation. No, because they know they cannot require it. Just questions to prove that you're exempt. So exactly what questions could this stranger ask you that you would have to answer that would not reveal your medical condition? And what is it that this vendor and Delta now know about you by your answer? And where is that information going? What's next? A requirement to wear an insignia on our clothing to warn others? Hasn't that happened before? That's what I've been warning about people, that it's coming to a place near you. And I'll tell you a couple stories soon that will scare you half to death. They scare me. The Massachusetts Freedom Coalition sent out an alert that the legislature was actually thinking of passing a law in Massachusetts to require you to wear masks. And so obviously this may have already happened by the time I post this. I don't know what the predisposition is of legislators in Massachusetts to vote for such things, but you should be on alert if you live in Massachusetts to scream and holler and do whatever you have to do to keep them from passing it. Again, this is why we are amassing this huge voter base. MakeAmericansFreeAgain.com. I know some of you complain because we ask you to put in so much information, but without the information, we can't help you. In other words, all these things that you sign up for, name and email address, there's nothing that can be done. There's no pooling of people together. We have to be able, what we'll be able to do once we get our voter mass together in a situation like this, we'd be able to get in touch with all the people in Massachusetts and say, this is going on. And we would be able to get them together by legislator to put pressure on the representatives that they elected and soon might unelect if things go well. All right, so now here's some stuff that'll scare you half to death. Kentucky has turned into a police state. Elizabeth Linscott, who lives in Hardin County, Kentucky, decided to get tested for COVID before driving to Michigan to visit her parents and grandparents. She tested positive, but had and continues to have no symptoms. The health department contacted her and told her she needed to sign a self-isolation and controlled movement agreed order, forcing her to agree not to go anywhere without calling the health department first, and she refused to do it. 2 days later, 8 people showed up at her house in 5 cars, including a man from the health department wearing a suit and mask and delivering 3 papers to her, her husband, and her daughter. They were ordered to wear ankle monitors, and if they move more than 200 feet, law enforcement will be notified. The health department petitioned a judge to get the order. The Linscotts are planning to hire an attorney. I hope they are well represented. So wouldn't you love to be, remember on Monday or Tuesday when we were talking about the fake test? So they use a fake test to tell you that you're positive, and then they put an ankle bracelet on you so you can't leave your house. Think about that. This was sent to me. McDonald's is now doing contact tracing. Due to the Emergency Measures Act, we are required to record the name and phone number of everyone placing orders at our restaurant. Please be prepared to provide this information before placing your order. So they're being mobilized, the restaurants, to collect data on you. This is why I don't go anywhere. I don't go anywhere. I go home and office. And of course that's bad for merchants. I try to buy whatever I can online from them. But people who are sensible, and I think I am sensible, we don't go anywhere because we don't want to be part of all this nonsense. This will scare you more. The Emperor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, has mobilized the National Guard to transport COVID-19 patients from their homes to an isolation facility near the University of Arkansas in Little Rock. This will allow people who live with others to be properly isolated if they test positive with one of the fake tests. The people who are, the National Guard people will work 12-hour shifts in order to make sure that coverage is available 24 hours a day, which means that some abductions, I'm sorry, I meant transports, will be done in the middle of the night. Charming, warms your heart, doesn't it? And last one here of this little group. In Ventura County, I'm going to read part of this to you. Due to the recent COVID-19 virus outbreak at the Palms building, the Ventura County Public Health Department has ordered mandatory COVID-19 testing and quarantine for all residents in the building. Mandatory COVID-19 testing will be at the Palms Community Room on Friday, July 17th, between the hours of 9 and 11 a.m. All residents residing at this address must be tested for COVID-19. After testing has been completed, all residents must quarantine in their unit until test results are received. More information will be provided as it becomes available. Except for essential workers, no one will be able to enter or exit the building during the lockdown. Security personnel will be posted on all entrances of the building 24 hours, 7 days a week. All resident card keys will be deactivated during the lockout. Think about this. So I had somebody write to me who said she was disconnecting from me because of my comparison of this type of thing with the Nazis. I don't know what you call this, but that's what the Nazis did. They locked Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto, and then they transported them to death camps. I mean, how far does this have to go before some people start to see what's really going on here? If you have a different name for this, maybe you have a kinder, gentler name for this, you let me know what it is. I'm not sure I'll use it, because I think we should call these people out for what they are. Our government has been deposed we are not operating, we are living under a foreign hostile regime right now. People, listen to me. We are living under a foreign hostile regime. We better get our act together pretty soon, because what's coming next will scare you more than this. I've been telling you it's going to get worse, haven't I? It's getting worse. This shows it's getting worse. All right. Now I want to talk about a real person. I cried when I got this. I get these all day long. And so I participate in a lot of videos and interviews and all this kind of stuff. And I keep coming back to, we have to do concrete things. It's wonderful to talk about the shifting of energy and that things are going to be better in the end, and I think they will in some ways. But this is what gets me up in the morning and keeps me up most of the night, is what I'm going to read to you next. We have got to take care of people who are suffering. All right, this is a person who lives in Central Ohio. All right. So she says in the beginning they were concerned, but figured out that there's what's going on has nothing to do with COVID-19. So here's the story. My husband and I have 3 kids who currently live at home with us. The oldest is my son from a previous marriage. He's 22 and is intellectually disabled. He suffered the most from all of this tyrannical behavior, so my letter to you is mainly about him. He's considered high-functioning autistic. He's able to do things for himself and be fairly independent. However, he'll never live on his own independently. He will never drive, so therefore he takes the county transit in order to go to and from work. He's worked at his job for over 3 years. He loves it there, and his fellow employees are very kind to him. Customers love him, and some come in just to see him and his big smile. He considers himself famous because he's very involved in Special Olympics and went to the 2018 USA Games, and last year we went to Abu Dhabi for the World Games to watch him compete and bring home 4 gold medals in powerlifting. He was on cloud 9 and living up his best life. But lately that smile has disappeared. It's been replaced with anger and frustration and uncertainty. He's not the same person he was at the beginning of the year, and I completely blame it on our state governor, who I don't even like saying his name anymore at this point, Mr. Dictator DeWine. Along with his former sidekick, Amy Acton, they have caused my son severe mental anguish that I fear will affect him long term. We have come so far with my son, and now all of his successes are falling away. My son went to his local gym 3 days every week, so that when the dictator of Ohio closed gyms, this was traumatizing to say the least. Fortunately, we have gym equipment here at home, so that became his only outlet. It still wasn't the same overall. He's still not returned to the gym due to the strict guidelines that have been ordered in order for gyms to even be open. He wouldn't have time to follow everything and still get his workout in before work. He's also afraid of the fact that they make him sign in, which I'm not willing for him to do because of the whole contact tracing mumbo jumbo. He ended up, almost, call it what you will, having a mental breakdown over all of this. He was off work for about a month with no income because his place of employment never shut down or closed. He just couldn't even function at work, so there was no point in him going there. He couldn't go to acupuncture because they were closed down, which is vital to him and vital to balance for his mental health. So that on top of everything else, he was like a ticking time bomb. To see your grown 22-year-old son breaking down sobbing, it's not something I even knew how to handle, and I know him best. Once things started opening back up again, it seemed more relaxed for him and he could go back to acupuncture. Then he returned to work and I was seeing his smile again. He was still frustrated at times because of the mandates the health departments were now enforcing and would come home and need to tell me everything they were making him do. We would talk it over and then he was fine. Then the mask thing started intensifying. He was seeing people on social media shaming others for not masking up and implying that those who don't do it don't care for others. I told him to quit looking at it. Those people are not doctors and they don't know everything. He said, but I do care about people. I just can't handle having that on my face. He's a kind soul who would do anything to help others, truly unique. He's a good boy. He kind of has a tic type thing where he tends to rub his fists on his face, not all the time, just some. He's careful and keeps his hands washed and tries to control touching his face. Honestly, I believe our whole family already had this virus back in February, but that's not important to any of our rulers. Back to the masks. He's obviously exempt, but that did not keep people from making comments to him. We had a plan, and it was just that he was to respond by saying it was none of their business and smile and walk away. Thankfully, this didn't happen much, but now that Licking County was moved to red level and masks were mandated last week because we had like 14 positive cases added to our total of 400 cases out of 180,000 people, I was more concerned for my son and what might be said to him. People can be cruel, and this whole masking has gone way out of control. No one seems to care that there are actually people who cannot tolerate or physically can't wear a mask. Our entire family are not mask wearers, and we're doing all we can to avoid it entirely. We prefer to breathe and let our immune systems function properly. My son was encountered by his transit driver just yesterday, telling him if he didn't wear a mask that he would be kicked off and no longer permitted to ride. Not a good thing to tell my son at all. He was furious and called me at work. He was to the point of almost crying. I called the county transit service and I got it straightened out and noted on his file that he's indeed exempt. The kicker was at first they were going to require a doctor note to excuse him from wearing one. I was like, what? That was not mentioned in the health department standards at all. They hem-hawed around and I told him he's exempt from wearing a mask along with exempt from having to get a doctor's note because he got a waiver through the county DD and they have transportation provided as part of his ISP plan and it's all paid for as part of his plan. So anyway, sadly, my son, his world is ending now and he's back to a state of mental breakdown mode once more. So, to all this, thank you so much, Dictator DeWine, for basically ruining my happy, smiling, somewhat carefree son who had everything going for him, basically took it all away in a matter of several months. He was set to compete in more competitions this year, obviously to participate in the Summer Special Olympic Games, which was canceled due to all of this mess. The last time my son competed was at the Arnold Sports Festival, which thankfully happened just in time before the tyrants took control of that situation. My son misses so much of what made him who he is that he's actually lost himself in the midst of everything. He's even having trouble identifying with himself. He can't think straight. He's confused easier. He hasn't seen his Special Olympic teammates since, and I honestly can't remember when. In closing now, with the episode that happened yesterday with transit and other things that have been mentioned at his work and his mental state, he's going to have to take more time off work. My son is at the breaking point, and what DeWine has done and is doing, I told him ultimately responsible for. He's made my son, with his pandering rules and regulations, into someone who is not happy and can't handle the day-to-day. Yesterday was the first day since my son first got a job. In like 3+ years, he's begged me not to have to go to work. This guy loved his job, a totally dedicated employee that any employer would be happy to have. He's a hard worker, and now his face is long and tired. He's mentally exhausted. I have it in my mind to speak to an attorney friend because my son has lost income over this and mental well-being. I've never seen someone have a mental breakdown, and I don't care to either, but it's come to that point. Everyday life is actually harming my son. Who would have ever thought that? So, Emperor DeWine, because you're no longer an elected official, you're a despot and a criminal. Just, I want you to, if you're watching, I don't think you'd ever take the time to watch something like this because you're too busy with whatever it is that you do in your off hours. I mean, do you and your wife, Fran, sit at home and you're like proud of this? You think this is okay? I'm so angry, I can't begin to tell you. And I'm no longer apologizing. I'm not apologizing for being angry. I'm not apologizing for being sarcastic. I'm not apologizing for using humor so we don't go all crazy. I'm not apologizing for any of it. And I'm not apologizing anymore for comparing these people to despots and communists and Nazis and Stalinists because that's what they are. That's what they are. You call it what it is. And anybody who doesn't like it doesn't have to watch anymore. I'm amazed at the people who watch this channel who don't like what I have to say. Then why the heck are you watching? Go find some sheeple out there wearing a mask who can tell you it's all okay and it's all in the interest of public health and that what happened to this young man is okay with them. And if it's okay with you, you can tune out now. You do not belong in our tribe if you think that this kind of thing is okay. It's not. So my heart breaks for this kid. My heart breaks for all the people that are being harmed. So, haven't cried for a long time on this channel, but I am now. Because it's awful. It's just awful what's being done. And so, MakeAmericansFreeAgain.com, it's our best hope to end this tyranny, because it is tyranny. It is tyranny, and it has to end. Thank you for watching. Have a good weekend. I'll be back to you next week with more news.